Welcome back. Well, this episode, I'll be covering topics of hurt people and how hurt people do more damage in hurting people. As you know, sometimes people who are or who have been traumatized in the past, they tend to hurt people as they go due to the fact that they have what they call a one track mind. It's not because they want to, it's because they are living still in the past. And when people have been hurt in their past, they tend to keep looking back at the hurt that was accrued in the past. Majority of the things that happen, people rarely get over, or what they do is they push it to the side and they say, oh, well, I think that this is something that I can get over, and I've been like this all my life, and I've been doing this way, and nobody's going to tell me anything different. But in actuality, when you've been hurt, sometimes you take that reflection or that past pain, that past trauma, and you press it on to someone else. You give them a little bit of doses, not all together, but you give it to them in doses of the past trauma and the pain and the agony and the turmoil that you've been in with whoever had traumatized you, really. And majority of the time, we call it the domino effect. So you just get that person mad, and then it just keep on going and going and going, and that's just like with anything. You've been traumatized by this, say for instance, you get hurt in the church, you've traumatized by that church, and you're like, man, forget it, I'm not never going to any other church in my whole entire life because all the churches are just the same, just like that church. But no, in actuality, that church, you had issues in that church, and that was that issue there. Now you go to a new church, you might not even have that issue, but because your thinking is like, oh man, I had past trauma and dealings with this church, all the churches are the same. So I'm just going to stay away from all of them. And that is trauma being regenerated, passed on, going on to the next cycle of your life. We often say, when we get older, things change. And that is true. When you're younger, you feel invincible, you think it's whatever and it's on top of the world. But then when you get older, you realize that a lot of the stuff that you thought in your younger years, like, it don't matter no more, like, let it go, you know? So it's more powerful to move on, to live your life and do different things than to hold on to that negativity or that trauma or that pain and keep it there. Because the longer you keep it there and you're sitting there looking back at that, that's where you're gonna go, and you might pass that on to your children or whoever else that's there. Just because that trauma happened to you, meaning that now it's going to rub off on everybody else. And when things like that happen, it goes from generation to generation. So now one generation, you know, you saying that to your younger kids, and now they done passed it on to their kids, like, oh, well, we're not going to go to church because of this, and this. But it never happened to them. It only happened to you, but you're passing it down. Now they have the domino effect of what happened to you now is pressed on for 2 or 3 generations, and they don't even know how it even started, but they know it ends with them, and this is what they have, and it keeps going on. So in order to stop that, first you need to really address the issue of why am I feeling this way? Yes, it happened to me, but why am I still holding on to it? Sometimes we can carry bags for so long that we don't get used to the weight, and that weight tends to ride us like heavy, but we don't see it's weighing us down and stopping us from going forward until we drop the bags and we're like, oh man, that was heavy. Now I'm relieved. So in actuality, hurt people because of the bags that they carry and how they carry, and then they transform it to the next person. And you know, there was a young lady that I had encountered with, you know, and she was like, oh yeah, she's like, you look like you're doing good. And I said, yeah. I said, this is years of baggage that I've been carrying that I'm now releasing and shedding. And she was like, oh, well, what do you mean? And we had a whole conversation about the baggage that I had was releasing. And she was like, wow, you know sometimes she's like, I've been carrying baggage, and we came to find out that, she had some things that she needed to work on herself. And, she was like, I had some baggage that I need to release too. And maybe, you know, going through these steps that, I had showed her, maybe that will relieve some of that tension that she had in her life so she can move forward and progress instead of being like, oh, I'm angry at this. It's all right to be angry. It's all right to be acknowledge that this is happening. But when you stay there too long and you keep on living it and reliving it and reliving it, you're only re-traumatizing yourself. And like I was trying to explain to this young lady, you know, look at it like this. Look at it as not forgetting. You can always remember that. Yes, it happened, but you don't have to live your day in and day out trying to remember or trying to memorize what happened or how it happened, and stay there, because this young lady was living it every day because of the simple fact that she thought that if she would let it go, that she would forget. And like I told her, I said, you won't forget it. It's something that you will never forget. But, you know, you work around ways to be in the moment with that, and you can live your life versus trying to be in a bubble, trying to relive it and trying to make everything seem like, okay, this is what it is. Sometimes you just gotta let it go and just go with the flow. And like I explained to her, these are the steps that you can go and you can do to remind yourself of, hey, this is where I was, but this is where I'm going. And you can do the both with leaving that behind, moving forward, pressing the issue of where you're going and not saying, okay, I remember this and I'm not going to do this because I remember this, because you're traumatizing yourself in fear and keeping yourself there versus being like, okay, this happens to me, yes, but let me work through it and get another path or go another way where it'll be different, and I'll still have this here in place, but I'll still be moving and progressing, and this young lady, now sees that she can live her life and not be stuck. But that was great to see the transition from a couple of months ago till now, and how just one moment of changing your mindset about how you look at the situation, makes a big difference. Because I know for me, it was a big difference between remembering and moving forward. Having that trauma and trying not to put it on anyone else, and not to say, okay, hey, this happened to me, and I'm going to treat you this way because this happened to me, and I'm not going to do this because of that. It took a lot from me to learn how to not um do that, and I'm not perfect. I make mistakes, and I do resort back there sometime, but then I have to bring myself forward and say, hey, I'm not there anymore. Let's move forward. And this, you're a different person, you're a different thing, this is different, so I'm going to move forward with where I'm going versus where I've been. And that made a big difference in how I viewed not only relationships, friendships, my kids, relationship with my kids, my family, my friends. It made me see things a little bit different, because what one person did to me, the other one didn't. So it would be unfair to take that pain, trauma, hurt, and dump it all on them and say, hey, this is what it is. And that would be totally unfair. So by stepping back and reevaluating that situation, you see the difference in what it could be, you know. So this is what I'm saying, is that sometimes just because this happened to you here don't mean that it's going to be the same here, because sometimes when you take a step in another direction, things change. Everything is always evolving and moving into another direction, in another realm. So while you're sitting there thinking that this is going to be the same, think about it like this: I'm changing, things are changing. If you're in a relationship and it's bad, and you get out of it and you get into a new relationship, think about it like this: that person is that individual person. You get into a relationship with a new person, that is a totally different person as well. You have to come with an open mind and open eyes to see whether or not this is the same or different. Sometimes getting a different result means changing the different dynamics of what you need, because sometimes we often go for what we want and it's not what we need. So sometimes changing the outlook of all of that from beginning to the end, you will see that the difference is in the process, not the beginning and not the end, in the process of how you're thinking about it. And that way you won't bring past hurt into a new ground, because when you break new ground with someone, if you're bringing that old baggage and that old trauma and that old hurt and pain, you're just bringing it to new ground that you just broke with this person, and you're like trying to figure out why this is not working. It's because you done brought all these baggage with you, and you didn't leave it at the end where it should have stayed. Now you done brought it, and you done broke new ground with old baggage. And you can't do that, because in order to move forward, you have to let go of the past and the pain and the hurt, and start fresh and new. Because not everybody's going to be the same, and not everybody who's same going to be exactly alike. So just watch out for that. Keep your eyes open, and remember, sometimes letting go baggage doesn't mean you just got to forget about it. It means that you ain't got to dwell on it, and you ain't got to sit there and be in fear of it. That means that you can remember it, let it go, and move on with your life. Thank you. I'll see you next
Thanks
episode.
for watching. Hit the subscribe button so you'll never miss an episode. And comment below and tell me something about yourself, because I am that